yourself. Remember, darling, don't look for me. I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer. 'Cause when we're gone, everything goes on. Well, you were staring out the window, and I said I wanna take you to the sea. And when I'm better, we'll do everything. I gotta stop making promises I can't keep. But if I was gone tomorrow, won't the waves crash on? Is it selfish that I'm happy as we pass the setting sun? Someday I'll be overcast, but you won't have to cry. 'Cause we'll do the grieving while I'm by your side. I said, don't try to make yourself remember, darling. Don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer. 'Cause when you're gone, everything goes on. And I'm so scared of getting used to this. All the vines that keep you tethered in your room. Well, someday both of us are leaving here, but for now I'll just bring this to you. Ooh, will you meet me in the daylight like we did before? Then I felt you on my shoulder. You weren't suffering anymore. You said I'm sorry that you worried, but don't apologize. I told you to forget me, but you stayed by my side when I said, don't try to make yourself remember, darling. Don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer. And when we're gone, everything goes on.
All right. Good evening, gamers. Hope you all are having a good one. Thank you for joining me this fine Wednesday evening. I'm sure that you guys would rather be in theaters right now checking out Gundam the Movie 3 in your local theater if they were showing it. I would rather be doing that too, personally. But, like I said, they're not showing it anywhere near me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed me bringing back that little intro. If you hadn't seen it, I had a lot of fun making it, so I thought, hey, let's start the stream off with that and get things rolling that way. So yeah, like I said, it's a little throwback for you guys. I really want to do some more of that stuff, but we'll come up with something, I'm sure. So yeah, welcome to Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, gaming, and Gunpla. I am Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, your host, and not joining me, as always, is the Blue Gamer Gundam Explainer, Adam Blue. He is actually currently sitting in the theater right now, waiting the start of Gundam the Movie 3, so I'm very jealous of that. And I'm sure he's going to report back with some great news for us. And, he dropped a great video earlier today. If you guys hadn't seen it, he did his full spoilery review of Requiem for Vengeance, and we can get into some Requiem for Vengeance talk if you guys are into it. But tonight, I really did want to focus on something that is near and dear to my heart, something that I'm very passionate about, which is the marketing of Gundam in the West. Well, and worldwide in general, but also just kind of specifically around Western audiences and that sort of thing. So buckle in, ladies and germs, get a pad and paper, because basically I am going to give a masterclass here. I'm going to distill my 13-year marketing career into an hour-long presentation about the do's and don'ts of what makes a good marketing campaign, how to track whether or not these things are effective or not. And we're going to do it within the context of Gundam, which I think is fun because obviously, big Gundam fan here. Honestly, there are only two things in this world that I love more than Gundam, which would be my wife and my kid. And, you know, it, let's put it this way. When money got tight, tighter than we need to mention, um, uh, you guys know that I'm a big whiskey fan, particularly bourbon. I gave up drinking before I gave up Gunpla. So if that doesn't tell you how important Gundam is to me, then I'm not sure what would. I see we've got some folks in the chat already answering my question here, and I wanted to kind of make this an open forum so that you guys can share your opinion too, and we'll talk about them. So I see Taco and Ultronomus. I see 16 times a second. Tony, good to see you guys. I love that you guys are already dropping in your takes. We will definitely get to them and talk about what could Bandai be doing better. And let me preface this by saying, like, I'm not saying this as like, hey, let's dog on everything that's going wrong with promoting Gundam. It's more, it comes from a place of love, and you're going to hear me speak very critically. You're also going to hear me do some praise around certain things. But, ultimately what it comes down to is that, like, I really do love Gundam, and I really do want to see it grow, and I want to see lots of people get into building Gunpla and things like that. And so to me, it seems like there's a lot of missed opportunities or even just mishandled opportunities. And I'll relate them to a lot of, I've tons, I've got notes here. I'll be dropping in lots of examples of not only things that Bandai has done, but things that other companies, and including companies that I've worked for, have kind of taken some things for granted. And so we will, address those accordingly. So with Requiem for Vengeance having been out almost a week now, and Gundam Breaker 4 has been out since the last day of August, so you've got like a month worth of sales data. It was very interesting to me to think about, and this kind of spawned from a conversation that I was having around the affiliate marketing that was occurring for both Gundam Breaker 4 and Gundam Battle Operation 2, which, I mean, that's been going on a lot longer. But I really wanted to know, within the context of, having a growth-oriented mindset and really trying to promote Gundam, I always go back to the question, like, who is this for, right? Like, who are we marketing to? Who is the prime demographic that we're trying to sell product to? Because at the end of the day, that's what all of this is about, right? I mean, it's not, like, obviously the community is important and things like that, but, we're talking about a television show that aired in 1979 and was canceled because it didn't sell product, and then it only came back once it became clear that you could sell product around it. And so that's why it's important to me. I'm not trying to make this entirely about the financials, but the financials paint a very clear picture about how healthy the franchise is. Let's maybe put it there. So I did my homework, obviously, right? So let me pull up some numbers here that I that I gathered. Hopefully you guys will be able to read this. I can zoom in here and give us a clearer look at it, because really we have to look at everything within its context. And so for me, I was very curious about how Gundam Breaker 4 performed, in its first month of sales compared to Gundam Breaker 3, which was almost 10 years ago. It was 8 years ago. It's 2016 is when that came out. So let's look at how the Gundam franchise has grown in the last 10 years, right? So here, this is I'm a big fan of Perplexity AI because it actually allows you to kind of quickly aggregate data and present it to you in a quick way, which not all search engines are capable of doing. So these are my results here. So based on the financial data provided in the search results, I can give you an overview of how the Gundam franchise has grown in market value between 2016 and 2024. So the 2014 annual revenue for the Gundam franchise was 80.2 billion yen, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhere around $34 billion, something, or 40, maybe $30 billion. I'll have to do the. Oh no, it's in the millions here. See, by fiscal year ending 2023, this had grown to 130 billion yen, approximately 870 million US dollars. So this accounts for this represents an increase of 81.7% from 2014 to 2024 in the market value of the franchise. So almost doubled in the last 10 years. And this is the important part, is I love that it provides context, factors contributing to growth, global expansion of the franchise, availability of the anime and merchandise outside of Japan. That's where things like Unicorn being a Western release, because we had that kind of, there were the dark times of the early 2000s when there wasn't a ton of, like, I mean, obviously there were like 0 Gundam video games coming to us from 2010 to 2016. Yes, the success of Witch from Mercury is a huge thing, but number 5 is the main thing here. Increased interest in hobbies like model kit building during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. And the reason that I think that this is an important thing to think about is because in my day job, during the COVID pandemic and since then, I've always worked in the golf industry. And there was one thing around all golf businesses that they couldn't have predicted, but they did benefit from, which was that when everyone was sheltered and locked in place and like everyone else's hobbies and sports were shut down, golf was a social distance sport. And so the golf industry boomed because of it. Same thing happened here with Gunpla as a hobby, right? So, you can't plan for a pandemic to benefit you financially, yet that's exactly what happened here. And so, yeah, the bulk of the growth that happened within the Gundam franchise happened in the tail end of the last 10 years. A lot around, Gunpla. Now this is a huge deal, right? Because that means that a video game that's based around Gunpla should be a no-brainer. Like you can slam dunk it, especially having doubled your potential sales audience, right? So let's take a look at that. Here based on available information, and don't worry, I'm gonna get into some context. We're not gonna go too crazy with it, but Gundam Breaker 3, in its first week in Japan, combined PS4 and PS Vita versions sold 141,000 units. It reached about 190,000 physical copies sold during its launch month in 2016. Gundam Breaker 4 sold 130,000 units across Switch, PS5, and PS4 versions in 2024. Specifically, it sold 98,000 retail copies in its opening week. 52,000 on Switch, 32,000 on PS5, and 13,000 on PS4. I'm actually very surprised at how low those PS4 numbers are. It just goes to show how many people actually have PS5s. I thought the PS5 was a myth. I didn't know that anybody had one. But, so yeah. What we're looking at here is that Gundam Breaker 4, despite coming out on more consoles, sold less in its first month than Gundam Breaker 3, despite having double the potential audience to sell to. Now, again, there's a lot of context that we can unpack here. We can talk about things like, obviously, we're in a recession now that is much worse than we were in 2016. We can talk about the fact that, yes, eventually Gundam Breaker 4 is going to outsell Gundam Breaker 3. It's just a matter of time. That we're just talking about first month stats here. So it's not like, the be all end all of everything. Let's see what else. There was something else that I really did want to paint, in a positive light because to me, those numbers don't sound good. And, you let me know in chat if you guys think that this is where, if I'm going the right way with this. Yeah, no, I think that addressed it. Is, yeah. To me, Gundam Breaker 4 would be a financial disappointment. And a lot of it is the question about, okay, well, who is Gundam Breaker 4 for, right? Are we trying to capitalize on the new newcomers to the Gunpla market and say, hey, I'm glad that you guys got in on this Gunpla thing during the pandemic. Hey, we also have this series of video games that allows you to do in video game what you do to your model kits. Are you trying to capitalize on that? But no, if you look at the advertising, particularly like that special movie that was released on Instagram, YouTube, the way that the marketing is presented is like, hey, those cool model kits that you build in Gundam Breaker 4, did you know that you can also do that in real life? And it's like, isn't that kind of backwards? It's like chicken or the egg, Are we trying to sell a video game to Gunpla fans, or are we trying to sell Gunpla to video game fans? And so that's where, Gundam Breaker 4 kind of has an identity crisis going on, because it doesn't know whether it is a marketing tool in order to sell more Gunpla, or whether it is, a product that we're trying to sell to people that have already bought Gunpla. And to me, it's the former, because at the end of the day, Gunpla, I don't want to say that Gunpla single-handedly saved Gundam in 1980, but model kit sales did contribute to the revival of the franchise after the original show was canceled. And I hear my dog whining. She she wants to go out right now, but she just came in, so don't feel bad for her. So the point being, again, who is this product for? And if that's the case, if it really is just a marketing vessel in order to move more Gunpla, then it should not cost as much as a full price game, because really, in reality, you're only paying for half of a game. The core gameplay loop, at least around the actual combat and grinding to get parts, most people aren't really into the gameplay of it. It's kind of a hack and slash type game. It's a little bit more difficult than Gundam Breaker 3, granted. So there is a bit more finesse to the gameplay than there was in previous Gundam Breaker entries. But most people are spending most of their time in the mobile suit hangar, taking pictures of their custom Gunpla, putting together the perfect digital mobile suit. So to me, this should be kind of like Helldivers 2. It's a $40 game that is trying to get you to spend money on the physical product that it is promoting. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. But, it's instead a full price game that is kind of, we would say like AA gameplay. There's not like a ton of, it's not going to attract gamers. It's only going to attract either Gundam fans or Gunpla fans. And even then, it doesn't really attract all of them. And then, so if you're already targeting a niche market of a niche that you're trying to then remarket to, again, it's just this identity crisis. And if I were a savvy marketer, I'd probably say something along the lines of, no, guys, our reach hasn't decreased. We are just becoming more selective about our about our audience. We are becoming more focused on our core customer base. So here we go. I see Taco in chat here says, lack of promotion for Gundam Breaker 4. Reviews were at the start around 7 to 8. And then follow up, they hoped that influencers would play the beta on streams, and that was their marketing, which kind of surprised me because Bandai Namco does a decent job promoting their games. I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is kind of where I wanted to dovetail into, is influencer and affiliate marketing. And Bandai does do this, but I would say that they don't do it particularly well. And I have been on both sides of affiliate marketing. I have been an affiliate for companies and, promoted products. And in my day job, I have contacted affiliates and tried to get them to promote products. And what I can tell you is that gifted promotion, often you're going to get what you pay for. Obviously there are a handful of influencers out there that they do receive promotional products and free copies of things and free samples of products from Bandai Namco. But what you'll find is that these influencers, these affiliates, are more interested in using that to promote themselves and to elevate their own brand as a way of saying, hey, look at this, look at the goodies that Bandai sent me. and it grows their own channel, grows their own outreach, but it doesn't actually do anything to sell the product. And so what I've found is that, affiliates and influencers really are only going to sell your product for you if they have skin in the game. And that means one of two things. Either you have to pay them up front, or you have to split them with an affiliate commission. And there are different, methodologies and thinking behind that, where it's like, I've worked with guys that they would say things like, for the amount, especially for low ticket items, right? If it's a high ticket item, if you're selling like $1,000 units and your commission on that is like 15%, then most most influencers are going to go for that affiliate deal. But if you're selling like $20 games and your affiliate commission's like 10%, then you're probably not going to hustle that much for it. And you're probably not going to create really dynamic content. But I'll tell you this, a lot of it just comes down to measuring the return on investment that you get. And, if you were to look at the player base of Gundam Breaker 4 before and after an affiliate or an influencer streamed the game, then that would be a way of at least directionally measuring how much impact they had. But, what you'll find, and I have friends that are content creators around Gundam Breaker, or Gundam Battle Operation, excuse me, and, one of the complaints that I got was like, well, Gundam Battle Operation's kind of niche, like it's a niche content, so of course my channel's not growing. And it's like, yeah, but that's just it, is the reason that you're doing that content is to promote the product, not the other way around. And so again, you have this kind of identity crisis around like, what's the goal, what's the desired outcome that you're trying to get at. And I'll tell you, my boss would be on my ass if I were not able to provide numbers around like, hey, I just contacted these 7 YouTubers and we gave them all early access to Gundam Breaker 4, and we set them to create content to promote the brand, promote the game. And then if our pre-orders didn't go up, again, you don't even have to measure it directly by using affiliate links. You can just measure it directionally by, if their video aired on a Thursday, how many pre-orders did we get greater by Monday? And that should tell you what the performance is roughly, because this is what they'll tell you to do with Google ads. Like typically, they won't use direct attribution for Google ads. They'll say like, okay, so directionally, did your traffic increase over the period of time that you were investing in Google ads? Because sometimes they might not necessarily click the link, but it's the awareness campaign. And so, again, there's a lot of different models of attribution that you can use to see how effective your marketing activities are. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at when it comes to affiliates and influencers, is that the methodology is wrong, because you are not giving the affiliates / influencers any skin in the game. They don't have any incentive to promote or push your product. They're just going to do what benefits them the most. And it goes back to this sort of like boomer CEO mentality where literally 100% of the CEOs that I've talked to, they all know how important social media is. They all know that you have to have a social media presence, you have to have lots of followers, you have to create killer content. And then literally 100% of the CEOs and, marketing executives that I've talked to expect an unpaid intern, or like a college, like a fresh out of college graduate, or even worse, like an 18-year-old fresh out of high school, because, oh, well, they spend all day on Instagram. Of course they know how to make content go viral. Again, you're going to get what you pay for. And so, you can go out and find like these scrubs that like either you think that the content is important or you don't. And what the indication I get from companies' behavior is that they really don't think that it's important, because they're willing to outsource those things to people that are not qualified and not trained and not capable of doing these things on their own. Now, that said, let's go back to Bandai for just a minute here, because Gun Evo is an example of when they did go to influencers and content creators that can deliver, right? You're talking about big names like Moist Critical, millions of subscribers, millions of followers, right? But at the end of the day, he knows how to grow a brand for himself. These influencers know how to grow an audience for themselves. That doesn't necessarily make them qualified to move your product. And, you're talking about a game that's free to play anyway. So it's not even like you're getting people in the door, like you're counting on them to spend money way, way down the line. Now let's, say what you will about Raid Shadow Legends, but at least their marketing is nailed down tight, and I guarantee you that they've done the numbers. They've crunched it to the point where they know, all right, whatever the percentage is, I'm going to be making up numbers off the top of my head, but it's like, okay, we know that 15% of our player base is going to invest in the microtransactions that we do. And that means that we can afford to, for all of the people that use promo code WANG to get Raid Shadow Legends on their phone for free, we know that 15% of them are going to spend money with us. Therefore, we know that we can afford to pay him this much per sign up on his affiliate link, because they have extrapolated out what percentage they can afford to part with. And then they go even further than that, and they don't necessarily reach out to specific influencers. They do it through stream elements. So it's like, and HelloFresh does the same thing, where it's like they go through an intermediary and say, you guys offer it to anyone who's using your product. So that means that you're already targeting influencers and content creators that are trying to make money off of their content. And now they're going to be motivated because they're getting something on the back end. So, very, very, like I said, if Raid is doing it, then Bandai can be doing it for Gun Evo. Let me see. Let me refer back to my notes, make sure that I've covered everything that we've been talking about. Yeah, that pretty much nails down what I wanted to talk about with regard to, Bandai's marketing of their video games in particular, and in particular around Gundam, right? And you look at even with Requiem for Vengeance, this is a huge one, is, Requiem for Vengeance represents a large opportunity to get non-Gundam fans into the Gundam franchise. It's an easy jumping on point. It's on Netflix as opposed to like Crunchyroll or like some esoteric streaming platform. There's already more people on Netflix than there is on any other streaming platform. I'm pretty sure those numbers are still correct. So yeah, why not promote it a little bit harder? Isn't it interesting that Adam, from Gundam Explained, was able to get an interview with Gavin Hignite, the writer and producer from Requiem for Vengeance, and that didn't come from Bandai. That didn't come from anywhere on high. That came from a place of passion and a place of, again, a desire to get more people excited about Requiem for Vengeance. You could say the same thing about what my guys Zeke New York are doing up in New York, where they sponsor giveaways themselves. They don't ask for handouts from Bandai. Everything that they do is about promoting product and about promoting community, and they're doing it, out of the goodness of their hearts. So that infuriates me even more, that people who are not kind of on the payroll are almost doing more to promote Gundam than the people responsible for promoting Gundam. So to me, like I said, I'm not trying to bash Bandai, and particularly Bandai Namco. But then when you hear news of like, oh well, now we have to cancel a series of video games around, I think Naruto was one of the games, and One Piece was one of the video games. Like, I'm pretty sure that those were two of the big franchises that Bandai Namco canceled planned titles for. It's like, well, you are not. Really what it comes down to is you're not tracking and measuring your marketing activity and the effectiveness of it. And maybe they can afford not to, because they're able to generate enough profit that it doesn't hurt them. But I've worked for small businesses where we live and die on our margins, and so it's very important to track everything that we do to make sure that that it's profitable. Um, so yeah, maybe they don't think of it as, well, we have our own like marketing team and we are going to promote our own videos and things like that. So as far as like influencer and affiliate marketing, we just don't see the value in it. So we're just going to throw like a couple of free promo codes and things at these people and hope for the best. And I mean, that's a method, but then even if you start with that, measure the outcomes of that. And if you have individuals from that program that overperform and out deliver others, then give them even more carrots to get them to continue producing content for you and continue to push product. Um, and obviously, like, you don't want someone's content to always be promoting you. You want there to be some level of authenticity to it. And that's where it's like something like where again, I'm gonna heap more praise on Adam. Don't tell him that I was that I was giving him so much credit here. It's just gonna go to his head. But you know, he promoted the heck out of Gundam Breaker 4, even though he had his own issues with it and criticized, that it wasn't going to be available on Xbox. That was like his big sticking point about it. Um, you know, it, to me, that's keeping it honest while still saying, hey, I still think that you should go buy this game. uh, but yeah, ultimately, like I said, I always go back to my favorite example of like, Sonic, where it's like, they decided not to make in the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, they decided to not make Robotnik fat, right? It seems like such a minor thing to change, but okay, so if you're making it for the nostalgia of the people that like Sonic, then they're not going to like it because Robotnik's not fat. If you're making it in order to get new fans into Sonic so that then they go back and play the old games, then aren't they going to be disappointed when they go back and play the old games and it's Fat Robotnik instead of Jim Carrey? That's where this kind of idea comes from, is like, okay, so is Gundam Breaker 4 for people that are into Gunpla, and it's like saying, hey, you like Gunpla, come play this video game that's a fantastic video game but also happens to be about Gunpla? Or is it for new people that play video games but don't build model kits, and it's like, hey, did you like that video game? Maybe you want to go build a model kit. And so it's like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. And I don't blame corporations for being gun shy around marketing with affiliates and influencers and things like that. It goes back to the thing that I'm very critical of, which are, millennial marketers like myself who are always talking about clout and engagement, and oh, look how much engagement we got. And I'm the first one to tell you that you can't pay your rent with Twitch followers, and you can't feed your family with engagement. So at the end of the day, you do need sales. A perfect example of this is there's that tweet that's blowing up right now, where it's for the boys. It's like that satirical Vought International like verified Twitter account, and they did a little play on Homelander at Vadaburger, referencing some real life events that may or may not have happened. And so what's interesting about that is obviously the engagement on the tweet is out of control. Like tons of retweets, tons of quote tweets, tons of comments, all that good stuff. So yeah, you got tons of engagement, but is that going to translate to more viewers for the show? Is that going to translate to more Amazon Prime subs? I don't think so, And if anything, it's not anyone who agrees with that messaging is already a customer. You're not winning them over. But anyone who doesn't agree with that messaging, who is offended by it, you run the risk of pushing them away. And again, I've been in that position where I've been at a company where we took, a political angle, and it blew up in our face both ways, which was hilarious. Honestly, it wasn't my decision to do this, but it was interesting that the result of that was that we offended people that even that we were not trying to offend, which that's the risk you run when you're, chasing tweet engagements and clicks, is that, you know, you're going to lose customers, and you don't want that. Oh, what's going on, Megas? Good to see you. Uh, Gregory Zerkov, Bandai stupidity of not helming the project. Oh, this is in reference to G Savior. So Savior easily, it would have been like Transformers Michael Bay did to. If it had succeeded, it would have been like Transformers Michael Bay did to Transformers series itself. I see what you're saying. Um, Tony Reyes says, "How are we getting a live action Voltron before Gundam?" It's a good question. I mean, part of me is happy that they're conservative with it, that they're slow playing it, that they really do want to do it right. That's my hope. So, um, and Tony also says I prefer GBO over Gundam Breaker. So do I. So do I. And so it's amazing to me that, you know, again, GBO is is the most Gundamy Gundam game on the market right now, and yet the promotion around it is so insular, and it's I don't know, it's kind of like one hand washing the other, because you're not really attracting new players into GBO. You're just it's like one person telling another person who's already playing to pick it up and play again. It yeah, it just doesn't, the promotion, which, despite the fact that the dev team is probably one of the hardest working dev teams in gaming in general, because, weekly updates on both Steam and console, um, they're constantly rebalancing things, constantly listening to what their player base wants. The fact that they put out those sort of referendums around, like, hey, do you guys want alternate universe suits in the game or not? And people voted for it. What was astonishing is that more people actually voted that they did want AU suits in the game, but specifically it was the Steam players. So the PC players wanted AU suits, but the console players didn't. Make of that what you will. So, let's see here. Taco at the start of the night said the biggest flop was the voice acting in Seed, Destiny Remake, and Freedom. Yeah, Lacuse indeed. um, I don't think that that's a marketing flop, though. That's just a dubbing flop. And, hey, that was one of my biggest complaints with Requiem for Vengeance, was the English dubbing. You know, I thought it was interesting the way that Ronet spoke to Solari. It was like this really overly dramatic Disney villain thing that he had going on that was. Ultronymous says, "Good evening. I think Gundam Evolution is the biggest Gundam flop. Other things may have been done poorly, but I don't think that Gundam Evo ever made its money back. I don't think so either. And good on Concord for catching it before it got out of control. Not that, I mean, the money's spent, so it's not. That's the worst part of it. Is it's like, you know, you've already invested the money in making the game, so it's not even like you're stopping the bleeding. It's like, at that point, you might as well just continue to support the game, because it's, closing it before it even gets a chance to take off is probably going to hurt you more in the long run. And I suppose the timing of this conversation, especially around Gundam Breaker, is very apt, since they just announced that they've got new DLC coming, a bunch of story DLC. Which, again, does anybody play Gundam Breaker for the stories? I know I don't, and I've watched some of Adam's streams, and he's constantly mashing the button to skip through all the dialogue scenes. So, like I said, most of us are just grinding to get the parts that we want, and then hopping into the customizer, and so. Taco said, I could see some saying G Gundam because it strayed so far from the pack. So that's an interesting thing, considering, like, specifically around the content, right? Yes, there probably is a conversation to be had about content that strays too far from what is Gundamy, right? And that's one of the things that about Requiem for Vengeance in particular is Requiem for Vengeance plays it incredibly safe. Like one of the things that I've been thinking about, like since the second time I watched it through, is I was like, there's really they're not breaking any new ground story wise with the 1 Year War or with Gundam as a franchise in general. It's really kind of recycling the same story that you get from the original Gundam, the same story you get from Zeta Gundam, the same story you get from 0080. It's the same thing over. Well, Eighth MS Team, another great example. Although obviously without the romantic portion to it, right? So there is something to be said about straying from the tried and true Gundam formula, and so I do have to respect that about G Gundam, about Wing Gundam, about Witch from Mercury. These are series that took the formula and tried something different. So I do appreciate that. Um, yeah, I think that for as much as I love Requiem for Vengeance, and I had my complaints with it. I hated the facial animations, the voice dubbing. I still don't like the designs of the mobile suits, although seeing them in action, definitely, eased that distaste from me a little bit. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, man, they played it so incredibly safe. Um, and you know what? Maybe that's the way to go, is to continue to like slow play it. Gundam fans don't like change, that's for sure. Here we go. UC Engage, new Gundam Breaker, and lack of content for Gundam Breaker 4. Yeah, man, it blows my mind that like obviously I knew that Zeta Gundam was going to be included in Gundam Breaker 4, but in the pre-order bonuses, the fact that among the pre-order bonuses, you had the Granddaddy, you had the Double Zeta, you had, I think, wasn't Victory one of them, and then like Ariel, they had like a lot of the mainline Gundams. They didn't have the Zeta. That was crazy. Oh, here goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is Ultronomus said they revealed that the season pass contents and release dates today all should be out in the next 2 weeks. Which, doesn't that seem like kind of rushed? Like, at least GBO2 kind of does the slow drip feed of like, we're gonna do one mobile suit every week, split it up. So yeah. Taco says, coming from marketing as a board game reviewer, what has surprised me is that Bandai leaves the promotion of Gunpla on social media and getting Gunpla in the hands of reviewers. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I dare say that people like Mecha Gaikotsu and Zaku Aurelius have done more to promote Gunpla than a lot of like official Bandai Collect stuff has done. And again, as much as I enjoyed going to the Gundam Base mobile tour, uh, let me rephrase this. So I enjoyed going to the Gundam Base mobile tour because I went there for the people, for the experience, to interact with stuff with the other Gundam fans in the area, and it exposed me to a lot of new content creators. Some of them are actually going to be on the show next week. It exposed me to the local RVA Gunpla group, so there was that going on. But as far as actual product, like, there was nothing there that I wanted, and they were sold out of almost everything there anyway. Um, and so a lot of people complained about that, is that to them, the Gundam Base Mobile Tour was about getting products that isn't normally promoted, and yet, you know, that that was just kind of a failure on their part. Whether it was a failure of planning to have enough inventory, or maybe they just like didn't expect that the turnout was going to be so huge, whatever the case may be. But again, I thought that it was what's to me kind of stunk about it is that, you know, for someone like me who wasn't really interested in going in to purchase something, and then I stood in line for 2.5, 3 hours just to walk through the trailer in order to get out into the area where all of the experience stuff was. It's like they really should have just had that area open to people to just kind of loiter and hang out, and then have the line for just people that wanted to purchase. And again, hopefully this is lessons learned kind of thing. But they've been doing the Gundam based mobile tour for 2 years now. Adam hit one last year, I hit the one this year. So you would think that there's kind of like, um, there the real measure of intelligence is how many times you have to screw up before you correct your behavior. So, make of that what you will. And then yeah, here Taco says with board games, it's 95% of the publishers providing stuff to get word out about a product. Um, and then yeah, you did mention how New Gundam Breaker did. Uh, and the worst part about it is that like I think that New Gundam Breaker left as much of a sour taste in Gundam fans' mouth Solo Solo got um from The Last Jedi, right? Is like, you know, if the backlash from The Last Jedi means that Solo fails, the backlash from New Gundam Breaker means that Gundam Breaker 4 fails, even though they have nothing to do with each other. That's the part that's a shame. It's like the only thing that they have in common is the name. They had already said in their own marketing that Gundam Breaker 4 was not going to be like New Gundam Breaker. And yet, you had people that were writing articles for Forbes talking about how terrible Gundam Breaker 4 looked. So, and so that's the harm, right? Of because the affiliates that they did have contact with didn't have any skin in the game, didn't have any motivation to publish content about how great Gundam Breaker 4 was going to be. The only legitimate sources of information that people had to get, preview content of Gundam Breaker 4 from were people that had like poor intentions to begin with and kind of were hoping it was going to fail. So yeah, that's going to hurt. Greg Zerkoff says 24 additional suits sounds small. They're probably going to add more, and I hope they do. Yeah. Let's see. 6 DLCs and 4 MS in each DLC. Yeah. And that's all they can really do with the DLC, right? Because at the end of the day, it's soft PvP. You don't have like direct PvP, which not most Gundam gamers, and I had this conversation with some of the folks on the Gundam Explained Discord the other day, is that most Gundam gamers on average are not PvP enthusiasts, right? And despite the fact that like GBO2 is so well balanced and it's such a well crafted PvP game, it's still not what Gundam fans want. However, it is what probably Gunpla fans would be interested in, because then, especially if you don't have, if there's like a level playing field as far as like parts creation and building your mobile suits, then at least there's like a, you can have some pride in your builds and take pride in the fact that you can beat up on people whose builds are not as cool as yours. Hey, Zionic Shadow, good to see you. Oh, and take it easy, Taco. Sorry I missed your gotta go message. Zionic Shadow says that the marketing company that's doing the Gundam base tour is in charge to do what they want. Yeah. And that, I even interviewed some of the people working at the Gundam base mobile tour, and a lot of them didn't even know what Gundam was. They didn't even know what they were going to be doing until that day. They were just answering, hey, like a basically like an Indeed job posting for day labor. So, not, you would hope that, you would get more enthusiastic people, working on these events, right? So, big shout out to the Hobbytown crew, because they made that event, so much more successful than I think it would have been if it were just 100% in the hands of that agency. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Bandai marketing. Now again, they have done some things particularly well. Again, making Requiem for Vengeance available on Netflix instead of on Crunchyroll. Great idea. Um, you know, they do dip their toes in the water as far as affiliate marketing and influencers goes, but I think that they probably don't they don't rate it as highly as maybe they probably should, because you're talking about a lot of different people that have a lot of different communities that have rallied around them and that would and represent a lot of buying power, right? Um, oh, here we go. Gregory Zerkoff says Bandai should give free samples. Now, I don't know about free samples. Obviously, there's the investment associated with that. But your follow-up comment here, for the Gundam-based free Haro models offered, that's always a good thing. And again, shout out to Zeke New York, because part of what they do is giving a free model kit when people attend their build events. Same thing that Bandai does, honestly. If you go to like any of the conventions, New York Comic Con was last weekend, and if you do like some of the build events that they host, like you'll get like a free entry grade Gundam to build. So there is some of that goes on. That's a huge shout out. Yeah. One of the things that Adam and I have talked about a lot is any kind of artifact that you can take with you, something that really like helps you remember an occasion. And this goes to kind of like how I like to manage people is, in order to motivate people, right? Like you really, you can kind of crack the whip or give them a spoon of sugar, right? And some people, if you pay them, then they'll work for your money, right? But if you actually go out of your way to help them, then they'll actually feel indebted to you. And I know that this sounds manipulative, but I assure you that it's actually from a place of service. Actually, Simon Sinek talks about this, and churches kind of abide by this too, where it's like, instead of just writing checks to people, it's about like volunteering your time, because your time is so much more valuable than your cash. So what I'm getting at is this. So like, as a manager, what I like to do is, rather than create like financial incentives for my employees to perform for me, when I take over in a management position, I like to optimize and take roadblocks out of their way. So like, before I even start telling them what to do, I'm like, hey, what can I do to make your job easier? Walk me through your day to day. How can I, how can I help you do this task easier? What can I do to optimize that? And what it does is it creates this relationship of trust. They know that they can count on me for, helping them out of these situations. Same thing goes to charity work, right? If I cut you a check for $1,000, you're going to be like, hey, thanks, bud. Appreciate it. But if I spend a weekend and I help you build a house, or I help you clean your house, or maybe I help you change a tire on your car, even though the monetary value of that task is not as great as the cash, you're never going to forget that time that my friend Steve came over and, helped me do something, right? And so this goes back to that affiliate marketing strategy, right? Even if you don't want to invest the commission on helping these influencers, do things, then give your time to them. Actually work with them and say, look, hey man, I saw that you made this video about Gundam Breaker 4. It would be really great if you got some shots of this, this, and this. Hey, what capture card are you using? Avermedia? Not as good as the as like the Camlogic one or whatever. I don't even know like capture cards. I use the cheapest thing I could find, right? But my point is, show that you're invested. Show that you have their back and they will have your back. You don't even have to write them a check. You just have to show that you care, and they will deliver for you. Zionic Shadow says that they had Gundams and Pokemons at New York Comic Con. Yeah, they always do. Yeah, that's it's like you either pick a Pikachu or you pick a granddaddy. Jam Calyx, good to see you in chat, buddy. Yeah, invest in people. Exactly, man. Zionic Shadow says, welcome to my world, a walking billboard. Absolutely. Absolutely. it's and I think that they're going in the right direction. And I appreciate that they're slow playing things around the live action movie. I appreciate that they, didn't take too many risks with Requiem for Vengeance. It really is like this is as inoffensive vanilla Gundam as we can get. So let's just, slowly dip our toe in the water. Um, but then, yeah, let's get more aggressive about content that is actually helpful to people. And you know what? Here's a great example. I think I mentioned this when I went to the Gundam base. This guy right here. So, a lot of people talk about like value posts in marketing and like how your content should serve your target demographic, prove helpful to them. And a lot of people misinterpret that as like, oh, I should just make memes and like be funny and stuff like that. And it's like, no, no, no. The Frank Kern approach to value content is that you prove your value by giving people free help, you know? So this guide is like the ultimate starter guide for Gunpla. Um, and you might have seen a lot of these graphics they actually recycled and made into Instagram and Facebook posts. So they got their mileage out of this stuff. And they talk about everything from panel lining to using custom parts. Let's let's pose our kits in the Hajime Katoki like awesome poses. Let me show you how to take pictures of your Gunpla, because isn't that something that Adam and I are always talking about, is that there's so many talented builders out there that just don't take good pictures and they don't pose their Gunpla well. Bandai's giving you the tools to do it right here. It's showing you what lights to use and everything. So this is exactly the kind of stuff that is going to get more people into Gunpla, because it shows them how accessible these different things are to improve their craft. So again, Bandai, more of this. More of this, please. And again, this comes from Bandai Collect, not necessarily Bandai Namco. So if Bandai Namco, here's a free suggestion. If we know that the onboarding to a video game like Gundam Breaker, Gundam Battle Operation 2 is very hefty, then let's create content that helps people play that game. Because I've criticized this a lot, is that game is so much fun, but there's so many intricacies to it and so many things that you don't know unless you really dig into the skills and the details and play a lot. And so Talos Mobius, shout out if you're listening, friend of the channel, friend of Gundam Explained. He does a great job of saying like, oh no, here are the suits that have melee priority 2 and 3. This suit actually has this skill which allows it to, shoot, I didn't know that the full armor, well, not the full armor, but the enhanced double Zeta Gundam, that its hyper beam saber, the hit detection works even behind it. Like, and again, that's not something that you would really know unless you played with the suit. And it's not something you would get from most of the content creators around Gundam Breaker, or I keep saying Gundam Breaker. There's too many Gundam Bees. Hey, thank you for the follow, or thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. Was that Diggs? Good to see you, buddy. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that if Bandai Namco was creating that content, then that is value to the people that would want to play that game. And if like, oh, shoot, I didn't know that that they had the enhanced double Zeta in the game, let alone like all of the double Zetas, but B, that the enhanced double Zeta has this special ability that allows it to hit behind it when it's using its beam saber, then maybe I might splash my cash on some tokens to try and pull that mobile suit. I don't know, just a thought. Jam Kellic says this needs to be at every official retailer. Yeah, exactly. That guide, and people have been creating that stuff since the 80s. Because obviously Gunpla has been popular since then, and so like the community generates that content. It's just a matter of presenting it, which they finally are getting into that. The Gunbees That was definitely my strategy when I played Gundam Breaker 3 was the bees, aka funnels. But yeah, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed this look into the sick marketing mind that I have, and again, like I said, I do truly love Gundam and I want the best for the franchise. I want the best for Gunpla. I don't want Gunpla to go away because of like the environmental impacts. I know that that's a big reason that the future of Gunpla is kind of in limbo, but that's a whole other topic that we'll get into some other time. And so, yeah, I don't mean for this to be super disparaging because, again, there are a lot of positive things to look at. But, I think that it's important to be critical of the things that we love and the things that we appreciate because ultimately we do want to grow and change those things. And so, if it means that we get to see more Gundam stuff, then I'm going to point that out. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hopefully you guys have a good rest of your night. I do believe that Taco and Yoshi is going to be streaming here in a little bit, so definitely go check that out over on his channel. Thank you guys for your takes on what are the biggest Gundam flops in your opinion. I think it's just more fun to talk about those things than it is to talk about the successes, which I think that as much as people like to try and dunk on Witch from Mercury, I do think that Witch from Mercury was a huge success, and even looking at the data as presented to us from my research here, yes, Witch from Mercury did have a positive impact on Gunpla sales, on Gundam franchise sales. I should just put it that way. It was probably just all those Choo Choo figures that those Choo Choo model kits. Cecilia, when? This is my question. I will definitely, if they come out with a Cecilia model kit, I will make a Cecilia Zeta, and I'm promising that right now. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with me instead of watching Gundam 3 in theaters. I know, I'm not as fun, but thank you all so much. We will catch you tomorrow on the Gundam Explained show. We'll probably be talking more Requiem for Vengeance and Gundam 3 thoughts now that Adam's seen the trilogy fresh in his head again. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later. Cheers.